Cold millionaire leaves, poor wife for mistress, then faces her shocking comeback with a secret baby. The room was alive with energy, a shimmering blend of luxury and exclusivity that only a place like the Plaza Hotel could offer. The annual New York Tech Innovators Gala was in full swing, with titans of the industry, socialites, and a smattering of celebrities basking in the soft glow of crystal chandeliers. The aroma of saffron-infused risotto and dry-aged steak wafted through the air as servers weaved expertly between tables draped in white linens. At the center of it all stood Daniel Grant. He wasn't just a guest, he was the star of the night. Dressed in a perfectly tailored Tom Ford tuxedo, he exuded confidence as he laughed and exchanged pleasantries with the who's who of Manhattan's elite. His wavy dark hair was meticulously styled, and his Rolex Submariner gleamed as he raised a glass of Dom Perignon to toast yet another successful year for Grant Technologies. "Daniel, darling, they're waiting for your speech," Evelyn Harper cooed, her voice like honey, but with an edge that demanded attention. Evelyn, his fiancée, was everything the tabloids adored. Her glittering Cartier necklace caught the light as she leaned in, her perfectly sculpted features framed by platinum blonde waves cascading down her shoulders. She wore a sleek black gown from Prada, and her signature red lips curled into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Daniel nodded, flashing her a grin that was more habit than sincerity. As he stepped up to the podium, a hush fell over the grand ballroom. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice deep and commanding. "When I founded Grant Technologies in a cramped garage in Ridgewood, New Jersey, I never imagined we'd be standing here tonight, celebrating another record-breaking year." The audience erupted in applause. But as Daniel looked out over the sea of faces, a strange sensation crept over him. The praise, the admiration, it all felt hollow. He shook off the thought and continued, weaving a tale of grit and ambition that the crowd devoured. Evelyn beamed at him from the front row, her gaze flickering briefly to the photographers, capturing their every move. Theirs was a carefully curated image, and she wouldn't let a single crack show. As the evening wore on, Daniel found himself at the bar, nursing a Macallan 18. He watched Evelyn across the room, her laughter ringing out as she charmed a group of investors. For a fleeting moment, his mind wandered back to another time, another woman, Sophia. Her name felt like a whisper in his mind. Soft but persistent. He hadn't thought about her in months, maybe even years. Yet tonight, in the midst of all this opulence, memories of her came flooding back. He could almost see her standing in their tiny apartment, her hair tied up in a messy bun, wearing one of his old Rutgers sweatshirts, as she balanced a steaming pot of spaghetti in one hand and a book on business strategy in the other. She had been his rock in those early days, when success was still a distant dream and every dollar mattered. She believed in him even when he doubted himself. But belief wasn't enough, not for him. When the company took off, Daniel became consumed by ambition. The life they built together began to feel too small, too ordinary. And then came Evelyn, polished, poised, and perfect for the world he wanted to conquer. He had convinced himself that leaving Sophia was the right decision. She deserved better, he told himself. But deep down, he knew better. The truth was, he had outgrown her, or so he thought. Daniel, Evelyn's voice cut through his thoughts. She appeared beside him, slipping her arm through his. "You look distracted. Everything all right?" "Of course," he said, forcing a smile. "Just taking it all in. Well, don't take too long. The board members from Goldman Sachs want to meet you. They're interested in the expansion plans for next quarter." Daniel nodded, setting down his glass. Evelyn always knew how to steer him back to the present. But tonight, the weight of his choices felt heavier than usual. As they walked back into the crowd, a server passed by with a tray of desserts. One of the dishes caught his eye, a simple crème brûlée, topped with caramelized sugar. It was Sophia's favorite. She used to make it for him every Sunday night, even when they were scraping by. He shook his head, trying to clear the thought. But as the evening wore on, it became harder to ignore the gnawing feeling in his chest.
Liam finally looked at
her. For the first time in years, Daniel began to wonder if the life he had built was truly worth what he had sacrificed.
Of pity and annoyance.
Hundreds of miles away, in a small apartment in Chicago, Sophia Turner tucked her son, Alex, into bed. The 5-year-old's curls framed his cherubic face as he clutched his favorite stuffed dinosaur. "Mommy, will Daddy ever visit us?" he asked, his big brown eyes looking up at her. Sophia's heart clenched, but she kept her voice steady. "Maybe someday, sweetheart," she said, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "But for now, you've got me, and I've got you. That's all we need."
Grace retreated into
She kissed his forehead and turned off the bedside lamp, retreating to the living room where a stack of fabric samples waited. Her fashion brand, Evergreen Designs, was finally gaining traction, and she had orders to fill. Yet tonight, as she worked under the soft glow of a desk lamp, her mind drifted. She hadn't thought about Daniel in a long time. But every now and then, she caught a glimpse of him in Alex's smile, or the way he furrowed his brow when concentrating. It was a bittersweet reminder of the man who had once been her everything. Little did she know, their worlds were about to collide again, setting off a chain of events that would change all their lives forever. Her apartment in Chicago's South Loop wasn't grand, but it was warm. The wooden floors creaked in familiar patterns, and the second-hand furniture bore the marks of years of use. A soft, earthy scent of lavender and cedar lingered, thanks to the candles she lit each evening after Alex was asleep. To her, this was home, not just a place to live, but a sanctuary she had built with her own 2 hands. Sophia sat at her small oak desk, the surface cluttered with fabric swatches, scissors, and a notebook filled with designs. Her fingers worked methodically, running over the soft texture of organic cotton as she jotted notes for her next collection. The faint hum of the sewing machine in the corner filled the silence, steady and purposeful. This wasn't just work, it was her lifeline, her promise to herself that she could provide for Alex without depending on anyone, least of all Daniel Grant. But tonight, Sophia's concentration wavered. The letter sitting at the edge of her desk kept pulling her gaze. The return address, Tech Innovators Foundation, New York City, felt oddly familiar, though she couldn't quite place why. She reached for the envelope, turning it over in her hands. It had arrived earlier that day, tucked in among the usual pile of bills and advertisements. Sophia hadn't opened it yet. Something about the sharp, clean font and the faint scent of cologne on the paper unsettled her. She took a deep breath and carefully slid her finger along the edge, breaking the seal. "Dear Ms. Turner, we are pleased to inform you that your company, Evergreen Designs, has been nominated for the Rising Innovator Award at this year's Tech Innovators Gala in New York City. Congratulations on this achievement, which recognizes your outstanding contributions to sustainable fashion." The words blurred as Sophia reread the letter. A mix of disbelief and pride surged through her. The Rising Innovator Award wasn't just any accolade, it was a career-defining moment. The names of past recipients were synonymous with success, and to even be nominated was a validation of everything she had worked for. Yet a gnawing hesitation crept in. The event was in New York, the same city she had left behind, the same world Daniel inhabited. She hadn't been back since the divorce. The thought of walking into a room filled with people who might recognize her, who might remember her as the quiet, unassuming wife of Daniel Grant, made her stomach churn. Sophia set the letter down and ran a hand through her hair, now a few shades darker than it had been in those days. It had taken years to find herself again, to build a life where she wasn't defined by someone else's shadow. Did she really want to risk that for one night? Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft whimper from Alex's room. She stood, her slippers padding against the hardwood floor as she made her way down the short hallway. The door creaked open to reveal Alex, his small frame curled under a quilt decorated with planets and stars.
"Mommy,"
he
and pulled
murmured,
out a thick
his voice
manila
thick
envelope.
with sleep.
For
I had a
5
bad
years
dream.
we have tried.
Sophia knelt beside
Victoria
him,
said,
her hand
voice
brushing over his
dropping to a
curls.
theatrical tone
What
of
happened,
sadness.
sweetheart? She asked
We tried
softly.
to mold you.
I dreamed
We tried
that you
to
went away
elevate you.
and didn't come back,
But a diamond cannot
Alex
be
said,
polished
his
from a
eyes
lump of
glistening with
coal.
unshed tears.
Gasps
Her chest
rippled
tightened
through the
at his
room.
words. Alex had
Happy
always been
birthday to me.
sensitive, deeply
Victoria
aware of the
said,
world
her
around
voice
him in
turning
ways that
icy.
often surprised her.
She shoved the
She
envelope
kissed
into
his
Grace's
forehead
chest.
and pulled the quilt up to
My
his chin.
son has a gift for you,
I'm
Grace.
not going anywhere,
Freedom.
she promised.
Grace's
You're stuck with
hands
me, little
shook
man.
as she took the envelope.
Alex gave a small
She
smile
looked at
and
Liam.
nestled into his pillow.
He was staring at the
Okay,
floor,
he whispered
refusing
before
to meet
closing
her
his eyes. Later that
Liam,
night,
she
Sophia
whispered.
sat by the window,
Open it,
staring out at the
Victoria
glittering
commanded.
skyline. The invitation
Grace
was
tore
still
the
in her
seal.
hand. A part of her
Inside
wanted to
was a
throw
legal
it away,
document.
to stay in
The
the safe,
bold letters
steady
at the
world
top
she had created
screamed
for
at her.
herself and Alex. But another
Decree
part,
of
the part that
divorce.
had pushed her to start Evergreen
Liam
Designs,
and I
to
have
fight for a
discussed
better
this,
future,
Victoria
knew she
announced
couldn't
to the
ignore
room,
this
as if
opportunity.
discussing a business
She
merger.
reached for her phone
He
and
needs a
dialed the
partner
one
who
person she knew
understands
would
his
understand.
Jessica has
Hi,
kindly
Cassie,
agreed to step
Sophia
in
said,
as the
when her
director
best
of
friend
marketing
picked up.
for Nexus
Cassie
Tech,
Porter
and
had
as
been her
Liam's
anchor during the
fiancée.
divorce, a
Grace
fierce and
felt like the floor
unapologetic
had
champion
opened
of
up beneath
Sophia's
her.
potential.
Fiancé, but
She now lived in Denver,
they aren't even
but the
divorced
distance
yet.
hadn't dulled their bond.
You signed a prenup,
Sophie,
dear.
It's
Victoria
late.
sneered.
What's going on? Cassie
And Liam
asked,
signed
her
these
voice
papers
warm
this
but
morning.
tinged with
You
concern.
have nothing.
Sophia
No claim to the
hesitated,
house.
her fingers
No
tracing
claim
the
to the
edge of the
company.
letter. I got an
No
invitation
claim to the money.
to the Tech Innovators
Grace
Gala.
looked at Liam again.
There was a pause
Desperation
before Cassie's
clawing
laughter
at her
rang
throat.
through the line. That's amazing.
Liam, tell them.
Your work is
Tell them
finally
about
getting
the
the
nights
recognition
I
it
stayed up doing
deserves.
the books.
It's in New York,
Tell them who designed
Sophia
the
said,
software
her voice
interface.
quieter now.
Liam.
Cassie's tone softened.
Liam finally looked
Daniel
up.
territory.
His face
Sophia
was
let
hard.
out a shaky laugh.
It's over,
Yeah,
Grace.
I don't know, Cass.
You just-
Part of me feels
you
like
don't
it's not
fit.
worth it.
You
I've
never
moved
did.
on, and this
Just sign
feels
the
like opening a door I
acknowledgement
worked
and
so
go.
hard to close.
Please don't make
But
a
what
scene.
if it's not about the door?
Jessica
Cassie
stepped
said.
forward,
What if it's
linking
about
her
showing the
arm
world
through
and yourself
Liam's?
that you've built something incredible?
worry, Grace.
You don't need
I'll take
Daniel
good
or
care of
anyone
him.
else to
And
validate
the house.
that. You've done this
I'm
on your
thinking
own.
of redoing the
The
kitchen
words hung in
immediately.
the air, settling
so
into Sophia's heart like a
pedestrian.
quiet truth.
Laughter.
She glanced at the stack of
The
designs
crowd
on
was
her
laughing.
desk, at the life
They
she
were
had
sipping
built
their
piece by
champagne
piece.
and watching Grace's
Maybe Cassie
life
was right.
shatter for
Maybe this
entertainment.
wasn't about the
Grace
past at
looked
all.
down at the photo album
In
in
New
her
York,
hand.
Daniel
The
Grant
hours
sat
of
alone in his
restoration,
sprawling
the
penthouse.
love she had poured
The city
into
lights
it.
poured through the floor-to-ceiling
looked at the
windows,
divorce papers.
illuminating the sleek modern
didn't
furniture
cry.
and the untouched dinner
That was the
tray on the marble
strangest part.
countertop. Daniel scrolled
tears
through his
didn't
phone,
come.
stopping when he saw an email
Instead, a
notification.
cold,
Tech
hard
Innovators
clarity washed
Gala
over her.
final list of
It was the
nominees
same
announced.
clarity she used when
Curious,
looking at
he opened the
architectural
attachment and skimmed
blueprints,
the names.
seeing the
His
structural
eyes froze when he
flaws that
saw
would
it.
cause a building to
Sophia
collapse.
Turner, Evergreen
She
Designs.
realized then
For the first
that
time
the
in
Harrison
years,
family
the name
wasn't a
stirred something in
fortress.
him,
It was
something
a
he
house
couldn't
of
quite
cards.
name. He set his
And they
phone
had
down
just
and
handed
poured
her the
himself
wind.
another drink, his mind
Grace
restless.
dropped the photo
He didn't
album.
know it yet, but
It
the
hit the
storm he
floor
thought
with
he
a
had left
heavy
behind
thud.
was about to catch up with him.
She looked
Sophia
Victoria
Turner
dead
had
in
never
the
been
eye.
a stranger to doubt, but as
You
the
want me to
plane
leave?
touched down at John
Grace
F. Kennedy
asked, her
International
voice
Airport,
surprisingly
she
steady.
felt an unease that went
Immediately,
beyond the usual
Victoria
jitters
said,
of air travel.
Your bags are all
The city
already packed by the
skyline
back
came
door.
into view,
The driver
its
will take you
jagged
to a
edges
motel.
piercing through the pale
Fine,
morning mist.
Grace said.
She hadn't set
She
foot in
turned
New
to
York
Liam.
in nearly 6 years,
think Nexus
not since
Tech
she
is
had left
yours?
everything behind
It's
her
in
marriage,
my name.
her dreams of a
Liam
family,
scoffed.
and the life she once
The name,
thought was hers
yes.
to keep.
Grace said. A
Alex
ghost
sat
of a
beside
smile
her,
touching
his
her
small
lips.
hands gripping the
But check the
armrest
patent
as he looked out
filings
the
for
window
core
with
algorithm,
wide-eyed
Liam.
excitement.
You were always too
Mom,
lazy to read
Is
the
this where the
fine print.
superheroes live? He asked,
She turned
his
and
voice
walked away.
barely louder than a whisper.
The crowd parted for her.
Sophia
not out
smiled,
of respect,
her chest
but out of
tightening at his
confusion.
innocence.
As she reached
Some of
the
them,
door,
maybe,
she heard
she
Victoria's
replied,
shrill voice.
ruffling his curls.
She's bluffing.
She had told him they were
Ignore her
going on a
music.
special trip for her
Play the
work,
music.
but she hadn't mentioned
Grace
the real
walked
reason
out
they were
into the
here,
cool
not the
Seattle
gala,
night.
not the
Her
nomination,
old sedan
and
was
certainly
parked
not the
around
possibility
back.
of crossing
Her two
paths with
suitcases
Daniel.
sitting on the pavement next
Alex
to the
was too
dumpster.
young to understand the
She picked up her
complexities
phone.
of their situation.
She She dialed a number
and
she
Sophia
hadn't
wasn't ready
called
to
in
explain
5
it.
years.
Not yet.
Hello?
The cab ride
A
from the
deep male
airport
voice
was a
answered.
cacophony of honking
Ethan.
horns, screeching
Grace
brakes,
said,
and
her
the
voice
chatter of a
breaking for the
city
first
that
time.
seemed to operate at
It's
double
me.
speed.
I'm ready to come
Alex
home.
pressed his face
And
to the window,
I'm ready to
his
take the
nose
job.
leaving faint smudges
It's
on the
about
glass
time,
as he
little
pointed
sister,
out towering
Ethan replied.
skyscrapers and flashing
The board
billboards.
has been waiting for
Look,
you.
Mum, that building's
headlights
touching the
of a
clouds,
sleek, matte
he exclaimed,
black Rolls-Royce
gesturing toward the
Phantom
spire of the
cut
Empire
through the
State Building.
darkness, pulling up
Sophia
to the curb
chuckled,
where Grace
grateful for
stood
his
shivering
enthusiasm.
next to her
It
battered
does look like that,
suitcases.
doesn't it?
The contrast
she
was
said,
stark, the
though her own
epitome of
gaze was
luxury,
fixed firmly on her
meeting
lap.
the discarded
The city
wreckage
felt
of
too
her
familiar,
marriage.
its streets and
The driver,
landmarks pulling
a
at
man
memories
built
she
like
had
a
tried
tank,
so hard to
stepped
bury.
out and opened
When the
the rear
cab
door.
finally pulled up in front
Ethan
of their hotel,
Blackwood
a
stepped
modest but comfortable
He was
boutique
tall,
near
wearing a
Bryant Park,
charcoal suit
Sophia
that
felt a
cost
knot
more than the
loosen in her
entire
chest.
Harrison house.
This wasn't the same
He looked at
neighborhood
his
she and
sister,
Daniel had
taking
lived in.
her pale
There were no
face
ghosts
and
here,
the cheap
no
dress
reminders of the
Victoria
life she had left
forced her to wear.
behind. It was a small
Get in.
comfort, but a comfort
Ethan said,
nonetheless.
his voice low
The gala
and
was still 2
dangerous.
days away,
I'll
but
deal
Sophia
with the
had planned the
luggage.
trip carefully,
Grace
leaving room for
slid
both
into the
work
leather
and a little
interior,
exploration
the
with
warmth
Alex.
of the car
That
enveloping her
evening, she
instantly.
called Cassie to check
She
in.
sank back,
Her
the
voice
adrenaline
lowered as Alex
finally
played
fading,
with his toy
replaced
dinosaurs
by
in
a
the background.
bone-deep
"How's the Big
exhaustion.
Apple treating you?"
As they
Cassie
pulled
asked,
away,
her tone
leaving the
bright
Harrison
and teasing.
estate in the rearview
Sophia
mirror,
let out a breathy
Ethan
laugh,
poured her a glass of
overwhelming as
scotch from the
always,
crystal
but Alex
decanter
loves it.
in the
He
center
keeps asking
console.
if Spider-Man is going to swing
Drink,
by. "Smart
he
kid,"
ordered
Cassie
gently.
said. "And you? How are you
Grace
holding
took
up?"
a sip, the
Sophia
liquid burning her
hesitated,
throat in a good
glancing
way.
at Alex.
I was
His
so
laughter filled the
stupid,
room
Ethan.
as he made his T-Rex
told
battle
me.
a Triceratops.
Dad told me.
"I'm okay,"
You
she
were in
said
love.
finally. "It's strange
Ethan
being
said,
back. Feels
his
like a
eyes
different
fixed on the
lifetime."
road. And you
Cassie's
wanted to
voice
prove that
softened.
you could be
"That's
loved
because
for
it was a
grace,
different
not for the
lifetime.
Blackwood
You're not the same
billions.
person you were back
It was
then,
a
Soph.
noble experiment.
And that's a good thing."
A
Sophia
failed
nodded,
one,
even though Cassie
but
couldn't see
noble.
her. "I know, it's
Grace
just,
laughed,
I don't
a
know if I'm
dry,
ready to face him.
humorless sound.
If he's even there,
treated me
ready
like
or
a
not,
servant.
you're going to be
For
fine,"
5
Cassie
years,
said firmly.
I hid who I was.
"You've built a life for
I
yourself,
hid the fact that
one
our
that doesn't
family
depend on
owns
him
half
or
the
anyone
skyline
else.
in this city.
Remember that." Across
I
the
thought if
city,
I worked
Daniel
hard,
Grant
if
sat
I
in his
built
penthouse,
Liam's company from the
staring at the
ground
glowing
up,
skyline.
they would respect
He
me.
had been restless all day,
And instead,
pacing the polished hardwood floors
I
of his
built a
office
throne
as
for a
emails
king
piled up in
who
his
stabbed
inbox.
me in the back.
His assistant had left hours
Grace
ago,
looked out the
but
window.
Daniel couldn't bring himself
Does
to leave
Dad
his
know
desk. The name
chairman?
Sophia Turner kept echoing in his
Ethan
mind.
smirked.
He had looked her
He's been
up after
waiting for
seeing
this
the
phone
nominee
call
list,
since the
though he
wedding
wasn't
day.
sure why.
He never
Her
trusted
company's
Liam.
website was sleek
He's
and
already
understated,
called the
much
legal
like
team.
Sophia herself.
They are
The
assembling a
photos showed her
war room
work,
at the
sustainable
headquarters tonight.
fabrics, minimalist designs,
Grace
but
closed
none
her
of her.
eyes.
It frustrated him
Blackwood
more than he
family.
cared to admit.
They were old money,
He wanted to
powerful
see
money.
her, to know what her life
father,
looked like
Cyrus
now.
Blackwood, was
Evelyn
a
had noticed his
ruthless
distraction
industrialist.
earlier that
When
evening.
Grace had
She had
insisted
breezed
on
into his
marrying
office
Liam,
in a cloud of Chanel
a
No.
nobody with a
5,
charmed
her heels
smile
clicking
and
against
a
the floor
startup
as she
dream.
leaned against his
Cyrus
desk.
had
"You've
cut
been
her off
brooding all day," she
financially,
said,
not
her tone
out of
half
cruelty,
curious, half
but to let
irritated.
her learn her
"What's
lesson.
going on?"
He had
"Nothing,"
told her.
Daniel replied, his voice
When
clipped.
you are ready to be a
Evelyn
wolf
arched a
again,
perfectly sculpted
the pack
brow.
will be
"You're a
waiting."
terrible liar," she said. But
"I'm
when he
ready
didn't
to be a
respond,
wolf,
she
Ethan,"
shrugged and left him
she
alone.
whispered.
Now, as he stared
Meanwhile,
out the window,
back at the Harrison
Daniel
estate,
wondered what he would
the
say
party
if he
was
saw
winding
Sophia
down.
again. Would she still
Victoria
hate
was
him?
basking in
Did
the
she even think
compliments
about
of
him
her
at all?
guests, drunk
The
on
questions nagged at
champagne
him,
and cruelty.
questions he had no right to ask
You
but
handled
couldn't
that
ignore.
beautifully, Victoria.
The next morning, Sophia
Jessica
and
Sterling
Alex
cooed,
set out to
clutching
explore the
Liam's
city.
arm. She was such a
They visited
drag,
Central Park,
always moping
where Alex
around
ran
in
through
those
the open
rags.
fields and climbed the
Liam,
giant
however,
rocks,
wasn't smiling.
his laughter echoing
He had
against
slipped
the
away to
backdrop
his
of
home
towering
office.
trees.
He needed to show
They had
the
lunch at a
potential
small
investors,
diner near
Mr.
Columbus
Archer and
Circle,
Mr.
where
Hale,
Sophia let
the
Alex
projected
order a
revenue
stack
for
of pancakes
Q3.
bigger than his head.
He sat
As they
down at his
walked back
desk
to the hotel,
and wiggled the
Sophia
mouse to
caught
wake his
sight of a
computer.
bookstore tucked
He
into a
clicked on the
quiet
Nexus
side street.
Tech dashboard
The sight of it
icon.
made her pause.
Access
It looked
denied.
almost identical to the one she
Liam
and Daniel
frowned.
used to visit on
He typed
lazy
in his
Sunday
password.
afternoons, back when life was
Invalid
simpler.
credentials.
She hesitated,
What the hell?
then
He
decided to
muttered.
step inside.
He tried tried the admin override.
The smell of old
System
books and fresh
lockdown
coffee
initiated.
enveloped her as they entered.
Unlicensed user.
Alex darted toward the
Panic
children's
flared in
section,
his chest.
and Sophia
He
wandered
picked up
through
his
the
phone
aisles,
and
her
dialed the
fingers
number
brushing
for
the
the server
spines of
technician,
novels and
a guy
memoirs.
named
For a
Dave,
moment, she
who
felt a
Grace
pang
had
of
hired.
nostalgia, a reminder
Dave, I
of the
can't get
quiet
into the
moments
system.
she used to
Liam
treasure.
barked. Liam.
"Mom, look!" Alex
Dave's
called,
voice sounded
holding up a
awkward.
picture book about dinosaurs.
Yeah,
His face
I
was
don't
lit
work
with
for you
excitement,
anymore, man.
and Sophia smiled despite
What
the
you
ache in
can't
her
quit.
chest. "That's a great choice," she said, ruffling his curls.
"I didn't quit.
"Let's get it."
My contract
Later
was
that
with the
afternoon,
freelance
as they
architect who
strolled
managed
through
the back
Bryant
end.
Park, Sophia
Grace.
felt the weight of the
She
past
terminated
begin
the
to
contract
lift.
10 minutes
The
ago,
city was
and Liam,
overwhelming, yes, but it was
the
also
servers.
alive in a way
They're
that
hers.
reminded her of why she
What
had
do you mean
fallen in
they're
love with
hers?
it all those
Liam
years
shouted,
ago.
causing the
As
guests
they
in the
stopped to watch a
hallway
street
to pause.
performer juggle flaming
The cloud
torches,
architecture,
Sophia felt
the
her phone buzz in her pocket.
algorithm.
She
It's
pulled
all
it out,
hosted on
her
servers
heart
she
skipping a
paid
beat
for.
when she saw the
She
sender,
owns the IP,
Tech
Liam.
Innovators Foundation.
You were just the front-end user.
The message was brief,
She
a
pulled the
reminder
plug.
about the gala,
The app
along
is
with an
dead.
updated guest list.
It's just a shell.
Sophia scanned the
The line
names,
went
her
dead.
breath catching when she saw
Liam
it,
stared
Daniel
at the black
Grant.
screen.
Her stomach
Nexus
tightened.
Tech wasn't
She had known
just
it was a
offline.
possibility, but seeing
was
his
gone.
name in black and white made
The
it real.
revolutionary AI
For the first time, she questioned whether she could go through with this.
thing that was
As
supposed
Alex
to make him
tugged
a
on her
billionaire
hand, pointing
wasn't
to a
his
nearby
code.
fountain,
He had
Sophia
been too
forced
busy
herself to
playing
smile.
golf and networking
"Let's go
to
see,"
learn the back
she said,
end.
her voice steady.
Grace had done it all.
But inside,
She
her
said she was
resolve wavered.
tidying up the code.
Sophia Turner woke
She had
before
actually
dawn,
been
the
building
grey
the
light of
engine.
the city creeping through
The
the
door to
hotel
the
room's
study
thin
opened.
curtains.
Victoria
For a few
walked in,
moments, she
holding
sat
a
at the
glass
edge of the
wine.
bed, staring out at the
"Liam,
distant
darling,
skyline.
Mr. Archer is
The day
asking
of the
for you.
gala had
He wants
arrived,
to discuss
and with
the
it came
bridge
a
loan."
restless energy that she couldn't
Liam
shake.
looked at his mother.
Alex was
His
still
face
asleep,
pale as
curled
a
under a
sheet.
blanket that barely covered
"We
his
have a
small
problem.
frame. The sight
Don't
of
be
him
dramatic."
calmed her racing
Victoria
heart.
scoffed.
She reached out to
"Nothing's
gently
a
brush a
problem,
curl away
now
from
that
his
the dead
face,
weight
careful
is
not to wake
gone."
him. His innocence,
Liam
his
swallowed hard.
unshaken trust in
He
the
couldn't tell
world,
her yet.
was a
He
steadying
couldn't
force,
admit
a
that the
reminder
dead
of why
weight
she was
was
here.
the only thing keeping
Sophia
their
stood,
financial
wrapping a
Titanic
soft
afloat.
robe around herself as she
Right.
made her way to the
Liam
kitchenette.
lied, his voice
The coffee
trembling.
maker sputtered and hissed
"I'll be right
as
there."
it filled her mug with the bitter
3
liquid
weeks
she
had
relied
passed
on to
since the
start her
birthday
mornings.
party.
She
The
cradled the cup
atmosphere
in her
inside
hands,
the Harrison
the warmth
household
grounding
had
her as she
shifted
stared
from
out at the
jubilant
city that
to
had once been her
suffocating.
home.
The air
She had
conditioner
tried to
broken
prepare
down
herself for
2
this
days
moment,
ago,
telling
and the
herself
repair
that the
company
gala was about her
refused to come
work,
out
her
until the
success.
outstanding
But as the
balance
hours
of
ticked closer, the
$4,000
truth
was paid
gnawed at her
to
resolve.
was
This wasn't
paid.
just about evergreen
Victoria sat at the
designs.
kitchen
It was
table,
about the
fanning
past
herself
she had
with a
left
stack of
behind
overdue bills.
and the man she had
"Why
once
hasn't
loved.
the maid come?"
Across the city,
Victoria snapped.
Daniel Grant
"The
stood in
floors
his
are filthy.
penthouse bathroom,
"We let the
staring
maid
at
go,
his reflection
remember?"
in the mirror.
Liam said
His
from the
razor
counter,
hovered
where
just
he was
above
eating
his
a bowl of
jawline,
cereal
but his mind
because
was
the private
elsewhere.
chef had walked out
The
on
email
Tuesday.
from the Tech Innovators
To save
Foundation
cash until
had been
the
sitting
Archer
in his
deal
inbox
goes
all
through.
night, and though
"Well,
he
where
had
is
read
the
it a
deal,
dozen
Liam?"
times, he couldn't
Victoria
stop
slammed
thinking
her
about it.
hand on the table.
Sophia
"I have the club
Turner.
membership renewal
The
due,
name felt
and
like
Jessica
a weight
is asking
pressing
why you
down
haven't
on his
bought her the
chest.
engagement ring
He had
yet."
debated skipping the gala
Liam rubbed his
altogether,
temples.
something
He
Evelyn
hadn't
had been
slept in
quick to
days.
dismiss as absurd.
Nexus Tech was
"You're one of the
hemorrhaging.
keynote speakers,
Without the
Daniel,"
algorithm, the
she
app
had
was
said the night
useless.
before, her tone
Customers were
sharp.
cancelling
"You
subscriptions
can't just
by
not
the
show up because
thousands."
of what?
He had
An
hired
old
a
flame?
team of expensive
Please,
coders to
Daniel
try and
hadn't
replicate
argued.
what
He
Grace
wasn't
had
even
done,
sure what he
but
would
they were
say.
scratching their
But as he
heads.
adjusted his tie
Grace's
in the mirror
code was a
and
labyrinth
glanced at
of
the expensive
brilliance,
watch on his
and she had
wrist,
taken the
he
key.
felt an unease he couldn't
"I'm
quite
meeting with
name.
Archer Hale
The man
Enterprises
staring
today
back
at
at him
noon,"
looked
Liam
every
said.
bit the part of a
"If I can
successful
just get them to
entrepreneur,
sign the check, we can
confident,
rebuild the
polished,
back end.
in control.
I just
But
need
beneath the
capital.
surface, cracks had
Make sure
started
you
to
do,"
form.
Victoria
Sophia
warned.
spent the late
"Jessica's
morning and early
father is starting
afternoon
to ask
preparing for the
questions
evening.
about your liquidity.
She had arranged
We
for Alex
cannot
to stay
lose
with
the
a hotel
Sterling
babysitter,
connection, Liam.
an older woman
We
with a
simply
kind
cannot.
face who had won
Liam
Alex
adjusted
over with
his
stories
tie
of her
in
own
the reflection of the
grandchildren.
microwave.
"Be good for Miss
He looked
Clara,"
gaunt.
Sophia said as she
"I
knelt
got
beside
this."
Alex, smoothing out the collar
At
of his shirt.
11:45
"I'll be
a.m.,
back before you know
Liam
it."
walked into the
"Okay,
towering
Mommy,"
glass skyscraper
Alex said,
of Archer
his voice
Hale
cheerful but
Enterprises
tinged with
in
curiosity.
downtown
"Are you
Seattle.
going somewhere fancy?"
He felt small.
Sophia
This was the
hesitated
big
before smiling.
leagues.
"Just a
He
little
straightened
work
his
thing,"
jacket
she
and
said,
approached the
ruffling his
receptionist.
curls. "Nothing to
Liam
worry about."
Harrison to see Mr. Archer.
In truth,
he said
she had
confidently.
agonized over what
"Mr.
to
Harrison,"
wear.
the
She didn't want to
receptionist said
stand
without
out,
looking up.
but she also
"You're
didn't want to
expected.
fade into the
Top floor,
background. After
boardroom
hours of
B.
indecision,
Liam rode
she
the
settled
elevator
on a
up his
floor-length
heart
emerald
pounding.
green gown. gown,
This was
its
it.
flowing fabric
He would charm
understated
them.
yet elegant.
He would sell them on the
colour
vision,
brought out the
even if
warmth in her
product was
hazel
currently
eyes,
broken.
a subtle nod to her
He was a
confidence in
Harrison,
how far
after
she
all.
had come. As she
He
looked at
walked into
herself in the
boardroom
mirror,
B.
Sophia felt a
It
mix
was an
of pride and
intimidating
trepidation.
room, with a long
This was the woman
mahogany
she had
table
fought to
and
become
floor-to-ceiling
independent,
windows
resilient,
overlooking the city.
strong.
Mr.
But
Archer
tonight,
sat at the head
she
of the
would be
table.
stepping back into a
He was
world
stern
where that
man
strength
with
would be
silver
tested.
hair.
By the time Sophia arrived at the Plaza Hotel, the evening was already in full swing. The grand ballroom was a sea of glittering chandeliers, opulent floral arrangements, and impeccably dressed guests. Waiters in crisp uniforms moved between the crowd, carrying trays of champagne flutes and hors d'oeuvres. Sophia took a steadying breath as she stepped inside. Her name had been checked off the guest list, and the weight of expectation hung heavy in the air. She felt the curious stares of strangers, the polite smiles of acquaintances she barely remembered. But then she saw him. Daniel stood near the bar, a glass of whiskey in his hand as he spoke with a small group of men in tailored suits. His presence was magnetic, as it had always been. He wore a sleek black tuxedo, his posture relaxed but commanding. For a moment, Sophia froze, her heart pounding in her chest. He hadn't seen her yet, but the sight of him stirred something she couldn't quite name. It wasn't love, not anymore, but it wasn't anger either. It was something in between, a mixture of emotions that she had spent years trying to unravel. Daniel felt her presence before he saw her. It was a strange sensation, like the faint hum of electricity in the air. He turned, his gaze scanning the room until it landed on her. Sophia. She was standing near the entrance, her gown a striking shade of green that seemed to glow under the ballroom lights. Her hair was swept into an elegant updo, and her expression was calm, poised. But her eyes held the same fire that had once drawn him to her. For a moment, Daniel couldn't move. The years seemed to melt away, and he was back in their tiny apartment, watching her laugh as she cooked dinner or curled up on the couch with a book. But then reality crashed back in, and he was reminded of everything that had happened since. He excused himself from the conversation and took a step toward her, unsure of what he would say. But before he could reach her, someone else stepped in, a man with salt and pepper hair and a warm smile. "Miss Turner," the man said, his voice smooth and familiar. Sophia recognized him immediately. Jonathan Pierce, the CEO of a major retail chain and one of the keynote speakers for the evening. "Mr. Pierce," Sophia replied, her voice steady as she extended her hand. "It's an honor to meet you." "The honor is mine," Pierce said with a smile. "Your work with Evergreen Designs is impressive. I've been following your journey for some time now." Sophia felt a flush of pride. Pierce's praise wasn't just polite small talk, it was genuine. They spoke for several minutes, discussing her designs and the future of sustainable fashion. The conversation grounded her, giving her a sense of purpose amidst the chaos of the evening. But even as she spoke, she could feel Daniel's gaze on her. He hadn't approached yet, but she knew it was only a matter of time. The hum of conversation filled the ballroom like a low, steady current, punctuated by bursts of laughter and the occasional clink of crystal glasses. Sophia Turner stood by one of the tall windows overlooking Fifth Avenue, her hand loosely holding a flute of sparkling water. She had purposefully chosen a spot on the fringe of the crowd where she could observe without being pulled too deeply into the throng. It was safer here, quieter, a place where she could catch her breath. But the feeling of safety didn't last. She felt it again, the faint charge in the air, the weight of someone's gaze lingering on her. She knew who it was without looking. Daniel Grant. Her fingers tightened imperceptibly around the glass, the cool condensation against her skin grounding her as she fought the rising tide of emotion. She didn't want to face him, not here, not now. But avoiding him in a room like this was impossible. Daniel hesitated, his polished shoes planted firmly on the ballroom's marble floor. He had started towards Sophia 3 times already, only to stop himself each time. The years that had passed since their last meeting seemed to compress into a single moment, and he was no longer the confident man who commanded boardrooms and investors. Instead, he felt like the man who had once stood in their small kitchen, fumbling for words as she looked at him with quiet disappointment. But now, as he saw her standing by the window, poised and radiant, he knew he couldn't delay any longer. Taking a steadying breath, he crossed the room, his steps deliberate, measured. "Sophia," he said softly when he was close enough for her to hear.
starting
She
with your
turned,
personal
her expression
assets.
carefully
And
neutral.
since you didn't read the
For a
prenup
moment,
properly
neither of
either.
them spoke.
What?
The silence
prenup
stretched,
protected my
charged with the
premarital
weight of all the
assets.
unsaid
Grace
words between
smiled.
them.
It didn't
Daniel,
protect yours.
she replied
Since
finally,
you commingled
her voice
the
even.
business funds with your
I wasn't
personal
expecting
accounts
to see
hide
you
money
here.
from the tax
Likewise,
man.
he said,
Yes,
though it
I
wasn't
know about
entirely
the Cayman
true.
accounts.
He had
Liam,
known she would be here.
everything
He had read
you
her
own
name on the
is
nominee
now
list, and
liable.
yet seeing her now
Liam
in the
looked at
flesh
her with
felt
pure
like a
horror.
shock to the system.
He was looking
I
at a
heard about
predator
Evergreen
he had
Designs.
mistaken for a
Daniel
pet.
began, his tone
You're a
tentative.
monster,
Congratulations.
he whispered.
The nomination is
I'm a
well deserved.
Blackwood, Grace
Sophia's
replied.
lips curved into a
And you're
faint smile, though it didn't reach her
Trespassing
eyes.
in my boardroom.
Thank you, she
Security.
said. I've worked hard
Two
for
large
it.
guards
Her words
entered the
carried a
room.
weight that Daniel couldn't
Escort
ignore.
Mr. Harrison out.
He could hear the
Grace
subtext,
said,
the quiet
turning
defiance
her
in
back
her
on him
voice.
to look out the
This
window at
success
the
was
city
hers,
she was
and
about
hers
to
alone.
conquer,
I
and make sure he
always knew
validates
you
his
had it in
parking.
you, he said,
We don't give
the words
handouts
coming
here.
out before he could stop them.
As Liam was dragged
He
out,
winced
screaming
internally,
her name,
knowing how hollow they
Grace
sounded.
didn't flinch.
Sophia
She picked
tilted
up
her
phone
head
and
slightly,
dialed
her
Ethan.
gaze cool.
Phase
Did
1
you?
is complete,
She asked.
she said.
Funny.
He knows.
I don't
Now let's
remember
go
you
after the
saying that
house.
back then.
I want to buy
Daniel
it
opened
before
his mouth to
foreclosure
respond,
auction.
but the words
Why?
caught in his throat.
Ethan asked on the other
He had
end.
always admired
Because
Sophia's strength, her
Grace said, her
determination,
eyes flashing.
but he had never
I
told
have a
her that.
birthday coming up,
Instead,
and I think
he
I
had
want
let
to
his
throw a
own
party.
insecurities drive a wedge between
Victoria
them.
Harrison
I made
was sitting in the
mistakes,
plush
he
velvet
admitted
chair
finally,
of the La
his
Belle
voice
Salon,
quieter.
waiting for
More
her
than I can
platinum
count.
card to be returned.
Sophia
so she could
studied him
leave.
for a moment,
She
her
had just
expression
received the
unreadable.
diamond package,
Yes,
a
she
facial
said simply.
massage and hair
You did.
treatment that cost
The conversation could have ended
$600.
there, but Daniel
She
wasn't
needed
ready to walk away.
The stress
He
of the
felt an
last few
urgency
weeks
he
had been
couldn't quite
etching new
explain,
lines into
a
her
need to
face.
bridge the chasm between them,
The
even
receptionist,
if
a
only
young
slightly.
girl named Sarah, who
How have you
usually
been?
fawned
He
over
asked,
Victoria,
though the
walked
question
back to the
felt
chair.
inadequate.
She
Sophia
wasn't
raised an
smiling.
eyebrow, her
She
tone
held
dry.
the card between two
Do you mean
fingers,
since you left
as if
me,
it were
or
contaminated.
since I rebuilt
Mrs.
my life?
Harrison.
Her words
Sarah
landed
said,
like a
loud
blow,
enough for the other
and Daniel
patrons to hear.
flinched. Both,
Your
he said
card was
honestly.
declined.
I want to know.
Victoria laughed.
Sophia
a
let out
sharp,
a soft
incredulous
laugh,
bark.
though it carried no
Don't
warmth.
be ridiculous.
I don't think you really
Run
do,
it again.
she said.
It's a black
But if you
Amex.
must know,
It
I've been
doesn't
fine.
decline.
Better than fine,
I ran
actually.
it 3
I have a
times.
business I'm proud
Sarah
of,
said, her
a
voice
life
flat.
I've built on my own terms.
It says,
She
account
paused,
frozen,
her gaze sharp.
seized by
And
creditor.
I have a son who means the
Do you
world
have
to
another
me.
form of
Daniel's
payment?
breath caught. A son.
The silence in the
He
salon
hadn't expected
was
that,
deafening.
hadn't even
Ladies who
considered the
Victoria had
possibility.
dined with
The
women
words hung
she
in the
considered
air
her
between them,
peers,
heavy
were
with
suddenly
implications.
fascinated by their cuticles.
Sophia saw the flicker of
There must be a
surprise in
mistake,
Daniel's eyes,
Victoria hissed,
followed by something
digging into
else,
her purse for
regret,
her backup
perhaps,
visa.
or guilt.
Declined.
It was hard to
Sarah
tell,
said, 10
and she wasn't
seconds later.
sure she cared.
And the
His
system
name
says
is
I
Alex,
have to cut the
she
cards.
said, her voice softer now.
Victoria
He's
left
5,
the salon
smart,
20 minutes
kind,
later,
and curious
having
about
written
the
a
world.
personal check
He's
that she
everything I
knew
could have
would
hoped
bounce her
for.
face burning
Daniel
with a
nodded
humiliation
slowly,
hotter than
processing
any
her
sauna.
words.
She
You're
drove
a
her
mother,
Mercedes home.
he said,
The lease was up
almost
next
to himself.
month, dreading the conversation
That's wonderful,
she would
Sophia.
have to have with the
She
bank.
gave a small,
When she
tight
pulled
smile.
into the driveway
Yes,
of the
it
Harrison
is.
estate,
There was
she
a
saw
pause,
a sight that
the
made her
silence
blood
stretching
run
taut
cold.
between them.
A tow truck
Daniel
was
wanted
hooked
to
up
ask
Liam's
more about
Porsche.
Alex, about her
Stop!
life, but he
Victoria
knew he had no
screamed,
right to.
scrambling out of her
Not
car.
after everything.
What are you doing?
You seem happy,
Unhand
he
that
said
vehicle
finally.
immediately.
I am, she replied, her
truck
tone
driver,
firm.
a burly
I worked
man
hard
with
for
a
this happiness,
clipboard,
Daniel,
didn't even look
and I
up.
won't let anything take it
Repossession
away.
order. Payments
Her
are
words
4
were a
months
quiet
behind.
warning, and Daniel
Step away
understood.
from the vehicle, ma'am.
Whatever his intentions,
Victoria ran
whatever
into the
guilt
house,
or longing he
screaming
felt,
for her son.
he couldn't erase
Liam,
the
Liam.
past. He could
They're
only
taking the
confront it,
car.
piece by painful piece.
She found Liam in the living
Before
room.
Daniel could
He
respond,
was sitting on the
a
floor
voice
in
cut
the
through the
dark,
tension.
a half-empty
Daniel,
bottle of
there
whiskey
you are.
beside him.
Evelyn
He
Harper
was still
appeared
wearing
at his
the suit
side,
from his
her
meeting with
presence as
Archer Hale,
commanding as ever.
but his tie was
Dressed
on the
in a
floor,
shimmering silver
and his
gown,
shirt was
she looked
unbuttoned.
every inch the
Let
socialite,
them take
her
it,
smile
Liam
bright
mumbled,
but sharp.
staring at the
Her
wall.
gaze flickered to Sophia,
taking everything
her
else.
eyes narrowing slightly.
What are you talking
And
about?
who is this?
Victoria
she
demanded,
asked, her
looming
tone
over
cool
him.
but polite.
Fix this, Liam called
Sophia
Jessica.
straightened,
Her father
meeting
will lend
Evelyn's
us the
gaze
money.
head on.
We are
Sophia Turner,
We do not
she
get
said, her voice
repossessed.
steady. I'm one of the
Liam
nominees
looked up.
tonight.
His eyes
Evelyn's
bloodshot
smile
and
tightened.
hollow.
Ah, yes,
He let out
the
a
sustainable
dark,
fashion
broken
designer.
laugh.
I've heard about you. She extended
Jessica.
a perfectly manicured
Jessica
hand.
is gone, Mother.
Evelyn Harper.
She left about an hour
Sophia
ago.
shook her hand briefly,
Left
her
where?
expression neutral.
She packed
Pleasure,
her bags.
she said,
She said she
though the
doesn't
word
date
carried no
projects.
warmth.
She
The
saw the
interaction was
lawsuit
brief but
papers.
charged, the tension
Lawsuit?
palpable. Evelyn
Victoria
looped her
felt
arm
the
through
room
Daniel's,
spin.
her smile widening as she
Grace.
looked up at him.
Liam
"Come on,
whispered
darling.
the name like a
They're
curse.
about to announce the next round
Grace
of awards."
isn't Grace Smith,
Daniel
Mother.
hesitated,
She's
his gaze
Grace
lingering on
Blackwood.
Sophia.
Victoria
"It was good to
froze.
see you," he said
Blackwood,
softly.
as in
Sophia nodded,
Cyrus
her
Blackwood,
expression
the
unreadable.
steel and shipping
"You too."
tycoon.
As
The
he
very
walked away
same,
with Evelyn,
Liam said,
Sophia
taking
turned
a
back to
swig
the
of the
window,
bottle.
her chest tight.
She's the heiress.
She had faced
She
him,
owns the
spoken her
code.
truth,
She
and held
owns
her
the company.
ground. But as the
And as
evening
of this
unfolded,
morning,
she knew
bought
this was
the
only
debt
the
on this
beginning.
house.
Sophia Turner
Victoria
didn't linger by the
collapsed onto
window
the
for
sofa.
long. The
The
gala
pieces
was
fell
about
into
her
place
work,
with
about
sickening
celebrating
clarity.
evergreen
The
designs
poise, the
and the
intelligence
journey she
Grace
had taken
hidden,
to get
the
here,
way she had
letting her
silently
emotions
managed
fester,
their lives.
letting her mind spiral
They had
back into
treated
the
a
past,
billionaire
wasn't
heiress
part
like a
of the
scullery
plan.
maid.
She placed her
She's
glass
suing
on a
us
passing
for
server's
50
tray,
million,
squared her
Liam
shoulders,
continued,
and stepped
and she
deeper into the
initiated
ballroom.
foreclosure
The crowd
proceedings
seemed
on the
denser
estate
now,
an hour
the
ago.
murmur of
We
conversations
have
rising with each
48
passing
hours
moment.
to vacate.
As she moved through the room,
No.
she was greeted
Victoria
with polite
gasped,
smiles and nods
clutching
from
her pearls.
industry peers
This
and
is my
well-wishers.
house. I
Her
have
name
lived here for
had gained
30
recognition
years.
in the
I am
sustainable
the
fashion
queen of
space,
this
and tonight
society.
was supposed to be a
You're a tenant
milestone,
being
a
evicted
moment
by
of
your
triumph.
daughter-in-law. Liam
Yet
spat.
the
We're
encounter
broke,
with Daniel
Mom.
lingered,
It's over.
casting a
The
shadow she couldn't
Diamond
quite
Jubilee
shake.
was the
Sophia
last
found herself
party
near
we'll
a small
ever
seating
throw.
area at the edge of the
doorbell
ballroom,
rang.
where a
It
cluster
wasn't a
of
guest.
chairs and low
It was a
tables
process
provided a
server.
reprieve from
He
the
handed
bustling
Victoria
crowd.
a thick stack
She
of
sank into
papers.
one of the seats,
Notice to vacate.
grateful for a moment to
Victoria
collect her
stared
thoughts.
at the paper.
From her
She thought
clutch,
of Grace,
she pulled out
the
her phone
quiet
and scrolled
girl
through
she
the
had
photos
forced to
stored
polish
there
the crystal.
until she landed on
She
one of
remembered
Alex.
handing her
He
the
was
divorce
grinning at the
papers
camera,
as a
his small
gift.
hands holding up a Lego
karma didn't
spaceship
just
he had
hit,
painstakingly
it
built just a week
bulldozed
ago.
through the front
Her
door.
heart softened.
2 days later,
Alex
the sky
was her
over Seattle
world,
opened
her
up,
anchor.
unleashing
Everything
a
she had done
torrential
since leaving New York
downpour
every sleepless
that
night,
matched the mood
every
of the
sacrifice had
Harrison
been for him.
exodus.
And
There
now,
were no
being
moving
here,
trucks.
so
They
close to the
couldn't afford
past she
them.
had left behind,
Instead,
felt
Liam
like a
and
test of her
Victoria
strength.
were shoving clothes,
As she stared at the
jewelry,
photo,
and
she
whatever
felt a
small
presence
heirlooms they
nearby.
could carry
She looked
into
up
the
to
back
see
of
Jonathan
Victoria's
Pierce,
Mercedes,
the CEO
which they
who
were
had
hiding
spoken
in
with
the
her earlier.
garage to avoid
His warm
the
smile
repo
and
man
relaxed demeanor
until
were
the
a
last
welcome distraction.
second.
"Miss
The staff had
Turner,"
all
he
left
said,
the day
pulling
the
out a
checks
chair beside
bounced.
her.
The
"I hope
house,
I'm not
usually
intruding."
pristine, was
"Not at
already
all,"
starting to
Sophia
look
said,
abandoned.
slipping her
Dust
phone back
motes
into her
danced
clutch.
in the grey
"Please,
light,
have a
filtering
seat."
through the windows.
Pierce sat
Victoria
down,
walked
his
through the
tailored
dining
suit
room
as
one
immaculate
last
as ever.
time. She
"I
touched
wanted
the
to say
table
again
where
how
she had
impressed
held
I am
court
with
for
your work,"
decades.
he said. "It's
She
rare
looked
to
at
see
the
someone
spot where she
approach
had
fashion with
humiliated
such
Grace.
purpose and integrity.
"Come on, Mother."
The industry
Liam
needs
shouted
more
from the
voices
hallway.
like yours."
He was carrying a box
Sophia
of his
smiled,
trophies
the
participation
compliment landing
awards
more
from a
deeply
life
than
of
she
mediocrity.
expected. "Thank you,"
"We have to
she
go.
said. "That
The
means a
sheriff
lot,
is on his way to
coming
lock
from
the
someone like
perimeter."
you."
"Where are we
"Don't
going?"
underestimate yourself,"
Victoria
Pierce
asked,
said,
her
his
voice
tone
trembling.
encouraging. "You've
She
built
looked
something
small,
remarkable,
frail.
and I suspect this is
The
only the
arrogance had
beginning."
been stripped away.
They
leaving
talked for
only
several
a
minutes,
frightened
their
old
conversation easy and fluid.
The
Sophia
Starlight
found
Motel on
herself
Route
relaxing,
9.
her
Liam
earlier
muttered,
tension easing as Pierce shared insights about his own
"It's all we
journey
can
in
afford
retail
with the
and the
cash I have in
challenges
my
he had
wallet."
faced along the way. It was refreshing
Starlight
to speak
Motel.
with someone who understood
was a
the
place
struggles
Victoria
of
had
building
driven
something from the
past
ground up,
and sneered
someone
at
who
for
respected the
years.
value of hard work
A
and
place for
perseverance.
transients and failures.
Across the room, Daniel
As they
stood with
dragged the
Evelyn
last
and a small
box out
group
to the
of
car,
investors,
a
but
sleek
his
black
attention wasn't on the
limousine pulled into
conversation.
the long driveway.
His gaze kept
It
drifting to the
splashed through the
corner
puddles
where
commanding
Sophia
the
sat
road.
with Jonathan Pierce.
The back
The
door
sight of her
opened.
smiling,
An
her
umbrella
posture
popped out,
relaxed,
held by a driver.
stirred something inside him,
Then
an ache
Grace
he couldn't
stepped
quite
out.
name.
She
Evelyn
wasn't
noticed
wearing
his
a suit
distraction.
today.
She leaned closer,
She was wearing a
her voice
stunning
low.
crimson
"You've
trench
been
coat
somewhere else all
and
evening,"
high-heeled
she said,
boots.
her tone
She
sharp
looked
enough to
vibrant,
cut through the
alive,
din
and
of the
powerful
room.
against the grey
"Care to share
backdrop
what's
of the
so
storm.
fascinating?"
Ethan
Daniel
stood beside
straightened,
her,
his
looking
expression
at the house
neutral,
with a critical
just
eye.
thinking about the speech,
Liam
he
froze
said,
by the trunk of the
deflecting.
Mercedes. He
Evelyn's
looked at
eyes
Grace,
narrowed
then
slightly,
down at his wet
but she let it
shoes.
go,
He couldn't couldn't
turning
even
her
meet
attention
gaze.
back to the group.
Victoria,
Daniel
however, felt a
exhaled,
surge of
grateful for the
desperate
reprieve,
delusion.
but the knot in
She
his chest
straightened her
remained.
spine and
Seeing
walked
Sophia
toward
again had
Grace.
thrown him off balance,
Grace,
and he couldn't
Victoria
shake the
said,
feeling that something
forcing a
important
smile
was
that
slipping
looked
through
more
his
like a
fingers.
grimace. Thank goodness
The
you're
hum
here.
of conversation
This has all
quieted
been a
as the
terrible
host of the evening
misunderstanding.
stepped onto the
Liam
stage,
explained
microphone in hand.
the situation.
It was
We
time
are
to
family,
announce the
aren't
winner
we?
of the Rising
You
Innovator
married my
Award,
son.
and the room
Surely you
turned
aren't
its
going
attention to
throw
the
your
front
own
of the
mother-in-law
ballroom.
onto the street.
Sophia felt her pulse quicken
Grace
as the
looked at
nominees were
Victoria.
called out
She
one
didn't
by
look
one.
angry.
Her
She
name
looked
was among them.
bored.
her photo displayed on the large screen behind the stage. She clasped her hands in her lap, her nerves a steady drumbeat in her chest. And the Rising Innovator Award goes to the host began, pausing for dramatic effect. Sophia Turner of Evergreen Designs. The room erupted in applause, and for a moment Sophia felt frozen. Then the reality of what had just happened sank in. She stood, her heart pounding, as she made her way to the stage. The applause felt almost surreal, a symphony of recognition she had never expected. As she accepted the award, a clear glass trophy etched with her name, she spoke into the microphone. "Thank you," she began, her voice steady, despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her. "This recognition means more than I can express." Evergreen Designs was born out of a belief that fashion can be more than just clothing. It can be a force for change, for sustainability, for good. And tonight, standing here, I'm reminded that hard work, passion, and resilience truly matter. Her words were met with another round of applause, and as she left the stage, she felt a sense of triumph that had been years in the making. As the evening wound down, Sophia found herself in the hallway outside the ballroom, the trophy still in her hand. She needed a moment away from the crowd, a moment to process everything. It was then that she heard his voice, "Sophia."
She held it out to
She
Victoria.
turned to see Daniel standing a few feet away,
Victoria
his
asked,
expression
taking it with
unreadable.
trembling fingers.
"Congratulations,"
Grace
he said, his
"My
tone
birthday is
quiet
next
but
week.
sincere.
I'm hosting
"You
it here,
deserve it."
at my estate.
"Thank
I'm
you,"
renaming
she said,
it the
her
Blackwood
guard
Manor.
still up.
You want us to
For a
come to your
moment,
party?
they stood in silence,
Liam asked,
the tension
confused
between them
hope
palpable.
rising in his
Then
eyes.
Daniel spoke again,
"Oh, no."
his voice tinged with
Grace
regret.
smiled, and it was a smile
"I'm sorry
that
for how
didn't
things
reach
ended,"
her
he said.
eyes.
"I've been sorry
I
for a
don't
long
want you to
time."
attend as
Sophia's
guests.
gaze didn't
I
waver.
checked the employment
"Sorry
roster
doesn't
for the
change what
catering
happened,"
company
she
I
said.
hired.
"It doesn't
Elite
erase the
staffing.
choices you made
I saw
or the
2
pain
new
they
names on the
caused."
list for
"I know,"
dishwashing and
Daniel
service
said,
staff.
"but I wanted you to
Victoria
know that I
Harrison
see you now,
and
Sophia.
Liam Harrison.
I see everything you've accomplished,
Victoria
everything you've
gasped.
become,
She
and
had
I'm
applied
proud
to
of
the agency
you."
yesterday in a moment of
Her
panic,
heart
using
clenched
her
at his
maiden
words,
name, thinking
but she
could
didn't
work
let it
events
show.
in the next town
"I
over,
didn't need
where
your
no one
pride to
knew
get
her.
here,"
She
she
didn't
said,
realize
her
Grace
voice
had hired
steady.
that
"I built
specific
this
agency.
life without you, Daniel,
If you want a paycheck,
and I'm not looking
Grace
back."
said coolly.
With
Show up
that,
at 500
she turned
PM
and
next
walked
Saturday.
away, leaving him
Uniforms
standing
are black
alone in the
pants
dimly
and
lit
white
hallway.
shirts.
Sophia
And
stepped
Victoria,
back into her hotel
make sure you
suite,
polish
the
the
glass
crystal.
trophy still
I
clutched
want
in
it
her hand.
spotless.
The room was
Grace
quiet,
turned on her
except
heel
for the
and
faint
walked
hum
toward
of the
front
city
door
outside
of
the
her
window.
new mansion.
She set the
"Come
award
on,
down
Ethan,"
on the
she
desk
said.
and exhaled
"We have a
deeply.
lot of
The
redecorating
evening's
to do.
events
It
replaying in
smells
her
like
mind like a
cheap
film on
perfume
loop.
and desperation
Alex's
in
soft
here.
snores drifted from the bedroom,
slammed
a
the
soothing
heavy oak
reminder
door
of what
shut.
truly mattered.
Victoria
As she
stood
moved
in
toward the
rain,
small kitchenette
clutching
to pour
the
herself a
invitation.
glass of water, her
She looked
phone
at
buzzed
Liam.
on the counter. She glanced at the screen and
she whispered.
hesitated. It was a message from
Liam
Daniel.
got into the driver's
"I'd like
seat
to
of the
talk,
Mercedes.
for Alex's
Get in,
sake.
Mom.
Please."
We need the money.
Sophia's jaw
Victoria
tightened,
looked at the house
and she
one
placed the
last
phone
time.
down without
The
responding.
house she had ruled for
She wasn't
30
ready to
years.
open that door again.
Now she was going
not
to be
now,
scrubbing the plates
maybe
of
not
the
ever.
people she used to look down on.
Across the city,
She
Daniel
climbed
sat
into
in
the
his
car,
penthouse,
and they drove
nursing
away
a
in
glass of
defeat,
whiskey he hadn't
leaving
touched
Grace
in
to
hours.
stand in the
The
window of
evening
the
had been a
master
whirlwind
bedroom,
of emotions,
watching the
and
tail
Sophia's
lights
words
fade.
echoed in his mind.
Grace
"I
touched
built
the
this
glass.
life without you, Daniel,
Checkmate.
and I'm not looking back."
The kitchen of
She
the
was right,
estate,
of course.
once a place Victoria
She had
Harrison
built
had
something
only entered
extraordinary,
to scold a
something
chef
she had
for
never needed him
over-salting the
for.
bisque,
And
was
yet,
now a
he couldn't
humid,
ignore the
chaotic
ache in his
inferno
chest,
of
the knowledge
clattering
that he had
pans
been
and
the one to
shouting
throw it
voices.
all away.
The
Evelyn had
industrial
gone to bed
dishwashers
hours
roared
ago,
like
oblivious
jet
to the
engines,
storm
pumping out
raging
clouds
within
of
him.
steam
He
that
stared
made
out at the
Victoria's
city
hair
lights,
frizz,
wondering
a
if there was
cardinal
any way
sin
to make
in her
amends not
former
for
life.
his sake,
Victoria
but for
stood
Sophia's and
hunched over a
Alex's.
stainless
He had seen the
steel
fire in
sink
her
that was
eyes,
deep
the
enough to
fierce
bathe
love she
a
had for their
child in.
son, and he
Her
knew deep
hands,
down
which had
that he
known
wanted to be
only the
part of
touch of
Alex's
silk
life.
and the
But
weight
how
of
could he earn
diamonds
that
for
right?
30 years
Sophia
were
woke
raw
to the
red
sound of
and
Alex's
submerged
giggles.
in lukewarm,
She found him
greasy
sitting on the
water.
bed with Clara, the
Her
babysitter,
manicure
who was
was a
showing him how to
distant memory.
fold paper into
3 of her
airplanes.
nails had
"Good
broken
morning,
in the
Mommy,"
last hour
Alex
alone,
said brightly,
jagged edges
holding up a slightly
catching on
crooked
the
paper
rough
plane.
sponges she
"Look
was
what I
forced to
made.
use.
That's amazing,"
Table 4
Sophia
needs
said,
more
her
crab
heart warming
cakes,
at his
Ulrich
excitement. "Thank you, Clara."
The catering
Clara
manager,
smiled.
a man named
"He's a delight,
Marcus
as
with a
always.
vein that
I'll
throbbed
let
in
you
his
two
forehead,
enjoy the morning."
screamed
With a
from the
nod,
past.
she gathered her things and
Victoria
left.
flinched.
As
She was
Sophia
wearing
helped
a
Alex
white
get ready for their
button-down
day,
shirt
her
that was
phone
2
buzzed
sizes
again.
too big,
Another
and
message from
polyester
Daniel.
black trousers
She
that
ignored it,
scratched her
focusing
skin.
instead on Alex,
uniform
who was
of the
chattering about
invisible.
all the places he wanted to visit
"Hey,
before
you
they
new
left
girl,"
New York.
Marcus barked,
"Can
pointing
we
a
go to the
clipboard
park
at her.
again?" he
"Stop
asked,
daydreaming
his
at the
eyes
sink.
wide
We're
with
down a server
anticipation.
on the floor.
"Of course,"
Grab that tray of
Sophia
champagne
said,
and get out
ruffling
there.
his curls.
Circulate.
"The park
And
sounds
smile for
perfect."
God's sake. You look
Sophia
like
and
you're
Alex
attending a
spent the
funeral.
late morning at Central
Victoria felt
Park,
a lump
walking
form
through
in
the
her
sprawling
throat,
greenery
hard and
and
jagged.
stopping at a playground where Alex joined a group of children
can't go out
climbing a
there,
jungle gym.
she whispered, her
Sophia
voice
watched from a
trembling.
nearby bench,
"I know
sipping
these
coffee
people.
from a small cafe
Please let
she
me
had
stay in
passed
the
on their
back."
way. She
Marcus
didn't notice
stepped
Daniel
closer.
until he was standing
His
a few
face
feet
inches
away,
from hers.
his hands tucked
"I
into
don't
the
care
pockets
if you
of his
know the
coat.
Pope.
"May
You're
I
on the
sit?"
clock.
he asked,
You want the
his voice
$150
careful,
You take the
measured.
tray, or you walk
Sophia
out the back
glanced
door
at him,
right now,
her instinct
and
to
sleep under
refuse
a
warring
bridge.
with her curiosity.
Your choice.
After a moment she
Beside
nodded.
her, drying a
Daniel
stack
sat
of plates
down,
with a
the
frantic
space between
energy.
them feeling
Liam
vast,
grabbed her
despite
arm.
the closeness.
He looked like a
He didn't
ghost
speak
of his
right away,
former self.
his eyes fixed
His
on
eyes were
Alex
hollow,
as he
rimmed
laughed
with dark
and played with the
circles,
other children.
and he had cut himself
"He
shaving,
looks
leaving
like
a
you,"
small, dried
Daniel said
nick on his
finally,
chin
his
that
voice
looked
soft.
pathetic under the
Sophia's
harsh
chest
fluorescent
tightened.
lights.
"He's his
"Mom,
own person,"
please,"
she
Liam
said.
hissed his voice,
"Strong,
desperate.
resilient,
"We have to pay the
kind."
motel bill tomorrow.
Daniel
or they're
nodded,
kicking
a
us
faint
out.
smile
Just
tugging
keep
at his
your
lips.
head down.
"I can see that."
No one looks at the help.
For a while,
You
they
taught
sat
me
in
that,
silence,
remember?
the sound of children
The
playing
irony
filling the
hit
space
Victoria
between them.
like a physical
Finally,
blow.
Daniel spoke
She
again.
had taught him
"I know
that.
I've hurt you,
She had
Sophia.
taught him that the people
I know
who
I don't
served them
deserve
were
forgiveness,
furniture,
and I'm not asking for
noise,
it. But Alex,
non-entities.
I want to know him.
Now
I
she
want
was
to be
praying
part of
that
his
her
life,
own
if you'll
lesson
allow
held
it."
true.
Sophia turned to
With
him,
shaking
her
hands,
gaze sharp.
She wiped them on her
"Being
apron
part of his life
and
isn't
picked up
something
the
you just
heavy
get to
silver
decide,
tray
Daniel.
laden
It's
with
something you
crystal
have to
flutes.
earn.
The
And even then,
champagne
it's not
bubbled
about what you
cheerfully,
want.
mocking her
It's
misery.
about what's best for him.
She pushed
I
through the heavy
understand,
swinging doors,
Daniel said, his
and
voice
stepped
steady.
out of the purgatory
"And
of
I'm
the
willing
kitchen
to do
and
whatever it
into the
takes."
heaven she had lost.
The conversation didn't end with
The
a
ballroom
resolution,
was
but it planted
unrecognizable.
a seed, an acknowledgement
Under
of the
Victoria's
past,
reign,
and a
the
tentative
house had
willingness
been
to
a
move
museum,
forward.
cold,
As they left the
beige and
park,
silent,
Sophia couldn't
filled
ignore
with
the weight
antiques
of the
that no
decision
one
she
was
would
allowed
have to make.
touch. Grace
That
had
evening, back in the
transformed her.
hotel, she
The
sat by the
walls were
window
draped
with
in
Alex
rich
asleep in the
midnight
next
blue
room.
velvet that
She
absorbed
thought
the
about the
sound
life she had
and
built,
made the room
the strength
feel
it had
intimate
taken to get here,
despite its size.
and she thought about Alex,
Thousands of
about
fairy
the
lights
questions he might
cascaded
one
from the
day
ceiling
ask
like a
about his
waterfall
father.
of stars,
Her phone
replacing
buzzed
the
one
stiff,
last time that
dusty
night,
chandelier
but this time
Victoria
it
had
wasn't a
loved.
message. It was
The
a
air
call
smelled
from
of
Daniel.
jasmine
She
and
stared at the
expensive
screen for a long
cologne.
moment before finally picking
Not
it
the
up.
mothballs and floor
"Daniel,"
wax of the
she
past,
said, her
and
voice
the
quiet.
music.
"Sophia,"
It wasn't a
he
boring
replied,
string
his tone
quartet
careful. "Thank you
playing
for
Mozart.
answering."
It was a live
Months later,
jazz
back in
band,
Chicago,
soulful
Sophia
and
found herself
vibrant,
walking through the park
filling
near
the
her
space with
apartment,
an energy
Alex
that made
running
the
ahead
floor
with his
vibrate
favorite toy
beneath
dinosaur.
Victoria's
She
cheap
watched him with a
rubber-soled
soft
shoes.
smile, the crisp autumn air
But it was
brushing
the
against her
people
cheeks.
that terrified
Behind her,
her
she heard the
most.
sound of footsteps
It wasn't
approaching.
just the stuffy,
She turned to see
old
Daniel,
Seattle crowd
a cautious
Victoria
but
had
genuine
cultivated.
smile on his face.
It was a mix
He had flown
of the
in for the
old
weekend,
guard
part
and
of the
new
slow,
power
deliberate effort
players.
they had agreed upon.
There were tech
Sophia wasn't sure
billionaires
where
in
the future
hoodies
would
and
lead,
blazers,
but for now, she was
avant-garde
willing to take it one
artists, and the
step at a
sharks
time
of
for
the
Alex,
venture capital
for herself,
world.
and perhaps even for
Victoria
Daniel.
lowered her head.
Life was a
letting her
complicated
graying
weave of
bangs
choices,
fall over her
mistakes, and
eyes,
second chances.
and began to weave
And while
through
the past
crowd.
could never be erased,
Champagne,
the future was
she
still
whispered to a
unwritten.
group of
And
men
so
near the
life proved
fireplace.
that every choice has
They
its
took the glasses
consequences.
without looking at her,
For
continuing their
Sophia,
conversation.
it was a journey of resilience and
acquisition is
strength,
genius,
carving
one
her
man
own
said.
path despite
Blackwood
the
Global
betrayals
is
of the
going to
past.
dominate the sector.
For Daniel,
And to
it was
think
a
she was
reckoning, a
living here the
reminder
whole
that
time
redemption
under the
is
radar.
earned, not given.
I heard the
This
ex-husband
story
was a
reminds
total
us that
fool.
while we can't
Another
change the
man
past, we can
Played
shape the
front-end
future with
developer while she
courage,
built the
forgiveness,
empire in the
and
basement.
determination.
Imagine fumbling a bag
If this story
that
moved
big.
you, don't forget to hit the
Victoria
like
felt her
button,
face
share your
burn.
thoughts in the comments,
She moved
and
away
subscribe to
quickly,
the channel
her
for more
heart hammering
powerful
against her
stories like
ribs.
this.
She turned
Turn
the
on the
corner
notifications
and nearly
so you
collided
never
with
miss a
woman
new
in
upload.
shimmering
Thank
red
you for
dress.
watching, and I'll see you in the next
Victoria
story.
gasped and steadied the tray just in time. "Watch where you're going," the woman snapped. Victoria looked up and froze. It was Mrs. Eleanor Gable, the president of the Garden Club. The woman Victoria had spent decades trying to impress. The woman who had been at the Diamond Jubilee just weeks ago. Eleanor frowned, squinting at Victoria. "Wait a minute." Victoria tried to turn away, but Eleanor grabbed her arm. "Victoria." Eleanor's voice wasn't quiet. It was a shrill peal of shock that seemed to cut through the jazz music. "Victoria Harrison, is that you?" Heads turned. The circle of socialites around Eleanor stopped, sipping their drinks. They looked at the woman in the ill-fitting waiter's uniform, holding a tray of champagne like a shield. "No," Victoria croaked, pulling her arm away. "You're mistaken." "Oh, it is you." Eleanor laughed, a cruel, delightful sound. "Oh, how quaint. I heard the rumors about the foreclosure, but I didn't realize things had become so hands-on. Are you working for the agency now?" I, Victoria stammered. She looked around for an escape, but she was hemmed in by the crowd. "Well," Eleanor sniffed, plucking a glass from Victoria's tray, "ideally the champagne should be chilled to 40 degrees. This feels a bit warm. Do try to do better next round, dear." The humiliation was a physical pain, a sharp twisting in her gut. Victoria wanted to scream. She wanted to throw the tray. But she couldn't. She needed the money. She retreated toward the wall, tears stinging her eyes. She bumped into Liam, who was carrying a tray of empty hors d'oeuvre plates. "They know," Victoria whispered, clutching Liam's sleeve. "Eleanor knows. They're laughing at us, Liam." "I know." Liam said, his jaw tight. "I just served a slider to Jessica Sterling. She didn't even recognize me. She looked right through me and asked for a napkin." Suddenly the jazz music swelled to a crescendo and then faded into a soft drum roll. The lights in the room dimmed, leaving only the spotlight focused on the grand staircase, the same staircase Victoria had descended for her birthday. "Ladies and gentlemen," a voice announced over the speakers, "please welcome your host, the CEO of Blackwood Global and the new mistress of Blackwood Manor, Ms. Grace Blackwood." A collective gasp went through the room, followed by thunderous applause. Grace appeared at the top of the stairs. If Victoria had thought she knew Grace, she was wrong. The girl who used to wear oversized sweaters and apologize for taking up space was gone. In her place stood a queen. Grace was wearing a gown that looked like it was woven from the night sky, deep indigo silk that flowed like water dusted with crushed diamonds that caught the spotlight with every step. Her hair, usually messy, was styled in sleek old Hollywood waves. She wore a necklace of sapphires that Victoria knew with a sinking heart was worth more than the entire Harrison estate had ever been. But it wasn't the dress, it was the way she walked. She didn't walk like she was afraid of the floorboards creaking. She walked like she owned the ground she stepped on. Beside her, holding her hand, was Ethan Blackwood. He looked fierce and protective, guiding her down the stairs. Grace reached the microphone at the bottom of the stairs. She smiled and the room seemed to brighten. "Thank you," she said, her voice clear and resonant. "Thank you all for being here to celebrate not just a birthday, but a rebirth." The crowd cheered. Liam and Victoria stood in the shadows near the kitchen doors, unable to look away. "A few weeks ago," Grace continued, her eyes scanning the room, "I was standing in this very room, being told that I wasn't enough, being told that my value was determined by the name I took or the service I provided." Victoria felt the blood drain from her face. Grace was talking about her. "I was told I was a lump of coal," Grace said, a wry smile touching her lips. "And I want to thank the people who said that, because the pressure you applied didn't crush me. It's what turns coal into diamonds." "To Grace!" someone shouted. "To Grace!" the room echoed. Grace raised a glass. As she took a sip, her eyes moved over the rim of the crystal. Slowly, deliberately, her gaze traveled to the back of the room. It cut through the darkness and locked onto Victoria. There was no anger in Grace's eyes. There was no fire. It was something far worse. It was a cool, detached amusement. It was the look a human gives an ant before stepping over it. She saw them. She saw the polyester uniforms. She saw the sweat. She saw the tray of dirty dishes in Liam's hands. And she smiled, a small, satisfied smile. The sheer weight of that look made Victoria's knees buckle, her hands slick with sweat and shaking from the adrenaline of shame lost their grip. Crash! The sound was like a gunshot in the silent room. The heavy silver tray slipped from Victoria's fingers and hit the marble floor. 20 crystal flutes shattered instantly, sending shards of glass and sprays of expensive champagne exploding outward. The noise echoed off the high ceilings. The applause died instantly. The band stopped playing. Every single head in the room turned. Victoria stood in the center of the wreckage, champagne soaking the hem of her cheap trousers. She was frozen, her hands still suspended in the air, as if holding a ghost tray. "Oh my God," someone whispered. "It's the mother-in-law. Is she drunk? Look at the mess." Marcus, the catering manager, materialized out of nowhere, his face purple with rage. He grabbed Victoria by the shoulder, digging his fingers in hard. "You idiot!" Marcus hissed loud enough for the front row to hear. "That is vintage crystal. You are fired. Get out. You and your useless son, get out now." Victoria began to sob. It was a guttural, ugly sound. She dropped to her knees instinctively, trying to pick up the broken glass with her bare hands. "I'm sorry," she wept, blood welling on her thumb where a shard sliced her. "I'm sorry, I'll pay for it. Please don't fire me." Liam rushed over, dropping to his knees beside her. "Mum, stop. You're cutting yourself." It was a tableau of total defeat. The former queen of society and her prince kneeling in a puddle of spilled alcohol and broken glass, begging a catering manager for mercy in the middle of a ballroom they used to own. "Leave them alone." The voice cut through the tension like a knife. Grace Blackwood was walking toward them. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Her silk dress rustled softly as she moved. Marcus immediately let go of Victoria and straightened up, looking terrified. "Ms. Blackwood, I am so sorry. This temp agency sent me incompetence. I will have them removed and billed for the damage immediately." Grace stopped 3 feet from where Victoria and Liam were kneeling. She looked down at them. From this angle, she looked like a giant. "No," Grace said calmly. "Ms. Blackwood," Marcus stammered. "Don't fire them," Grace said. She didn't even look at Marcus. Her eyes were fixed on Victoria. "Accidents happen when people are out of their element." Victoria looked up, mascara running down her cheeks. She waited for the blow. She waited for Grace to tell everyone who they were, to mock them, to kick them out. But Grace didn't. Grace reached into her small beaded clutch. She pulled out a crisp $100 bill. She held it out not to Victoria, but to the air, letting it flutter down. It landed in the puddle of champagne next to Victoria's knee. "That should cover the glass," Grace said, her voice devoid of any emotion. "And keep the change as a tip. You look like you need it." The room was deadly silent. The insult was so subtle, yet so devastating. Grace wasn't treating them like enemies. She was treating them like charity cases. "Liam," Grace said, shifting her gaze to her ex-husband. Liam looked up, hope flashing in his eyes. "Grace, you missed a shard," she said, pointing a manicured finger at a piece of glass near his shoe. "Make sure you get it all." I want this floor spotless for the dancing." With that, she turned her back on them. She didn't look back. She walked back toward Ethan, who was waiting with a smile. "Maestro," Grace called out to the band leader. "Play something upbeat. The mess is being handled." The music roared back to life. The guests laughed and turned back to their conversations, the incident already forgotten. Victoria and Liam were left alone in their circle of shame. "Pick it up, Mom," Liam whispered, his voice broken. "I can't," Victoria sobbed. "Pick it up," Liam hissed, grabbing the wet $100 bill and stuffing it into his pocket. "We have to finish the shift." Slowly, painfully, Victoria Harrison began to pick up the pieces of the glass. She scrubbed the floor of the house she used to rule, wiping away the footprints of the woman she had tried to destroy. As she worked, she looked up one last time. She saw Grace laughing, throwing her head back in pure joy, surrounded by light and love. The revenge was complete. Grace hadn't just taken the house. She hadn't just taken the money. She had taken the only thing that mattered to Victoria, her dignity. And she had done it without raising her voice. As the party raged on into the night, the former masters of the house faded into the background, just ghosts in black polyester, cleaning up the feast of the winner. Wow. Talk about a total karmic reset. Grace proved that you should never judge a book by its cover, or a wife by her silence. Victoria and Liam thought they could throw Grace away like trash, but they ended up cleaning up her trash instead. It's the ultimate lesson. Be careful who you step on while you're climbing the ladder, because they might be the ones holding it when you fall. Grace showed true power in the end. She didn't scream, she didn't shout, and she didn't even have them thrown out. Instead, she let them keep their jobs, forcing them to watch her success from their knees while scrubbing her floors. That is a level of psychological revenge that stings way more than a lawsuit. What do you think? Did Grace let them off too easy? Or was the humiliation of serving her guests the perfect punishment? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of justice and twists, please smash that like button. Share this video with a friend who needs some drama, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a story.